circle.
Yeah, and this is really the perfect opportunity for us to actually practice what we're training in, right? Which is to return mindfulness. So we've had this period of activity and things are kind of moving around and lots of sound and motion. So let's just take a moment, just right now, right where you are in your seat. We've been working for a whole week with just bringing awareness to the breath. And just, again, finding that posture that feels upright. And just for the next minute or two, just directing the attention to the awareness of the breath. Just feeling where in the body you notice the breath, and just directing attention to the feeling of the in-breath and the feeling of the out-breath. Noticing just this breath. And this breath. When you're ready, if you've had the eyes closed, just go ahead and open the eyes. If you've been resting the eyes, just go ahead and look up. And just again, just notice the consequences of having sort of moved from all this activity into just directing attention to the breath. Just noticing if there's any difference, and there may or may not be, but just bringing attention to that as well.
Okay, so what we're going to do is take some time to go around the room in a circle, and we'll just answer the first and answer hear responses to the first question, which was what were you aware of during the gentle stretching practice? So just your response to the first question, not the whole page, right? Just the first question. What did you notice? What were you aware of during this gentle stretching period? And we'll just go around, and if you want to say pass, you can say pass, and you can raise your hand if you want us to come back to you.
Perhaps muscle stretching, some joints going snap.
So feeling the joints changing position. Excellent.
Pass. Go ahead.
A lot of my muscles were tight, but also that I was distracted.
And distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so noticing the tension in the muscles and tightness, and noticing when we get distracted. And when you got distracted, were you able to, at some point, bring the attention back?
Yeah, it was kind of back and forth.
Back and forth and back and forth. Excellent.
Yeah, I always trying to just keep coming
Yeah,
back.
and that's the practice. That's exactly it. Thank you for sharing that.
My muscles becoming heavy when they're pulled and stretched.
So feeling the heaviness in the muscles when they're stretched.
Yes.
This was the first question regarding our awareness during the practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did my best to maintain awareness of what was happening. Occasionally my mind did wander, but it was kind of difficult for it to do so, given the fact that I was stretching myself in ways that I normally don't do during the exercise.
Yeah, exactly. And so again, noticing that when we bring attention to the body that's in motion, it kind of holds our attention, right?
Yes.
Because if we're kind of focusing on what we're doing, we can keep our attention there. Excellent. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
When I was just time balance, I balance and renegade photos. I was just comes to my skin contact, I'm like, clothes. The sweat sticking to my clothes. Don't wear. I'm just gonna get bumpy.
So feeling some skin sensitivity,
Yeah.
and then just letting that sensitivity be there. Excellent.
Feeling how my body moves when it does certain stretches. Some of it I do on a regular basis and some I don't. So my muscles felt kind of taut, like wires being pulled, and then they stay. They don't get snapped, they just stay. And so they hurt. But I was thinking about it on the way. So I was thinking about the pain and I go back to not thinking about the pain. So kind of drift between what I can feel and just
Right. So noticing the tension that starts to feel a little painful, and then maybe that's a signal to, oh, I'm stretching too far.
Yeah.
Let me relax a little bit. Excellent. That's exactly the practice. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Felt almost immediate fatigue and a little anxiety over, ways my body's not used to being in. And I felt fear almost right away because I've had a lifetime of problems following somebody at the front of the room, and I thought that was going to happen again. It was a lot slower than music yoga, and so that helped me, gave me time to figure it out.
Yes. Yeah, and noticing that all of a sudden, all this other stuff starts to happen, right? Fear starts to appear, some anxiety starts, what's going to happen here? And that's all part of our reactivity to things, right? And just noticing that when we're able to notice that, right, can we even bring attention to that as well? And maybe even just bring attention to the breath when we start feeling that fear and anxiety. So thank you for sharing that. Yes, absolutely.
I noticed simultaneously that I need to do more yoga because yoga feels good and I haven't really done much of it recently. And I also noticed that I'm a lot more flexible in some ways than I tend to give myself credit for.
Okay, so noticing that there's some capability in the body that you're not aware of, not actually working with the body in this way. Yeah. Thank you.
Just a lot of soreness, especially upper body, shoulder, and neck, doing those stretches, and also when trying to keep my balance, put a lot of stress on my shoulders and biceps, trying to fight to keep my balance and stuff like that. As far as the lower body stuff, the twists, they're okay. So so it ranged from unpleasant to okay, depending on which part of the body it was. But as far as, so far I haven't had any real pleasant sensations with anything we've done so far.
Yeah, exactly, right? And thank you for sharing that, because one of the other ways that mindfulness can be helpful,
Right.
and this is really important to include this, I think, in our understanding,
Right.
Is that training with attention in this way is also can be helpful by helping us learn to tolerate what's unpleasant.
Right.
Because a lot of times, we can all think of times in our lives when we're feeling something really that we don't like, and we get really reactive about it. Right? Something happens where it's unpleasant, we don't like it, and all of a sudden we're agitated, we're anxious, we're getting really reactive. And so if we're able to tolerate a little bit more what's unpleasant, we might then be able to get a little less reactive to it.
Yeah.
And the less reactive we are, we might then be able to make better decisions, right, about how we want to proceed in ways that are beneficial rather than reactive. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, a lot of this may feel unpleasant, and that too can be part of our human experience. Thank you.
When we were doing the balancing, it reminded me of when in elementary school I had a balance bar and I would always gone there. And then when I remembered that, and I remembered the line, it was like easy. Yeah,
so we start to do things, and sometimes we trigger memories, right? And sometimes those memories can be pleasant, and sometimes maybe unpleasant. So also we can notice when memories start to become part of our experience. Yeah.
I felt the blood rushing back to my arms when, after I read it. I noticed that a lot.
So really noticing the difference, maybe some tingling and throbbing, and the difference in sensations of where the body is in space. Thank you.
I was very aware that I was approaching a half century. I could feel I've had a lot of injuries, nothing catastrophic, but I've had a lot of injuries and I could feel every single one of them. Because a lot of them are nerve related. And so that kind of stretching and that changing of the blood flow. But I think the most poignant thing for me was I was very aware of the absence of some of our classmates. And I was aware of everybody's movements, but it wasn't disruptive. It wasn't problematic in any way. I'm fascinated by the human species, and I love watching people, so it was all very pleasant. And it was a great distraction for me, because I have a son going through a very severe crisis, very dangerous situation. And so it was I was able to kind of get lost a little bit from that.
So finding some sense of relief in
Yeah.
just feeling the body moving and just being right here.
Yeah, for the
just
first
being
time
present.
in like 3 or 4 days.
Thank you.
Just like notice the pain in my feet and stiffness.
So feeling when we start stretching, we kind of become instantly aware of how stiff and tight the body can be.
Oh yeah.
Many of the movements were more uncomfortable than I expected, very different from my martial arts stretches. Also, during the shoulder rolls, I found that I lacked the muscle groups or nerves to perform a smooth movement, which might be why the rolls were painful.
So feeling some jerkiness, not feeling a sense of smoothness. And again, coming back to sometimes this may be more unpleasant. And then how do we bring some care and attention to what feels unpleasant as well as pleasant? Yes, thank you.
And, well, I did notice that some of my bones might be dislocated. I don't know. Not really sure.
I feel like you wouldn't be moving as easily as
Yeah.
they were.
So things didn't feel smooth.
No, I mean, like, I noticed, no, I mean, like, I was like,
Are you double jointed?
Cracking?
it just felt like, let me just skip on down to the particular thoughts.
Okay.
I was just like, gee, first I noticed my hips. I was like, gee, my hips sure are uneven. Hey, come to think of it, a lot of my skeletal structure is less even than I remember.
Yeah. So notice how we start thinking and in some ways kind of judging our bodies, right? My hips aren't even, my movements are jerky, I'm feeling really tight, and sometimes we get also judgmental.
It wasn't just my hips; it was also my shoulders sort of, and my spine, and
You noticed it in a lot of places.
my neck,
A lot of places.
my neck, pretty much everything.
I'd say, can you move your arms like this? How well can you bend your legs?
Pretty darn well.
Pretty darn well.
And there's nothing wrong with your skeletal structure.
Okay, so
Different isn't
So
necessarily
thank you.
bad.
yeah, thank you for being willing to share your experience of just
Yeah.
this new practice that we've added for tonight. Let's take a moment and check in on how the week's homework went. You were asked to continue to do a body scan every day and to add some awareness of breath.
Didn't even bother to do mine for some reason.
So, and that happens too, right? So sometimes it doesn't work out, and that's also just fine. Would anyone else like to share any difficulties or any insights that you gained from doing the body scan? or the awareness of breath practice this week?
My last week was pretty unpleasant. My air conditioner broke. So, not really much pleasant happened last week.
I'm getting a little,
And were you
going a
able,
little stir crazy.
were you able to, without an air conditioner, were you able to do a body scan or awareness of breath, or? Yeah, that was just too much. Yeah, and again, you know, things happen, and sometimes we can't fit those kind of practices into our life.
The house was consistently like 85 to 90 degrees.
Right. So, so again, so the invitation, you know, we can think about, you know, going into this next week, thinking about what might be beneficial to help you.
It got fixed earlier today, so.
Okay, so getting the temperature tolerable will be a important strategy for being able to do these practices.
Yeah.
Other difficulties or insights you may have gained from working with the body scan or the awareness of breath? Yes?
Well, like him, you know, I still haven't even started, you know, doing the homework because, you know, my plate is still overloaded. I'm still looking for work, and there's just a whole laundry list of stuff, and it's also, you know, I've gotten so out of whack, you know, as far as my schedule goes. Not only am I back to staying up to like 2 to 4 in the morning again, but I'm also not taking my generic Flomax on schedule, which means I can wind up going back in the hospital, have a catheter stuck in me.
I see.
You know, and so that just, yeah, everything is just completely out of whack for me right now.
So again, there's some challenges in finding the time to be able to devote to some of these practices.
Well, just getting my brain to, you know, to slow down enough so I can actually, you know, organize it and yeah, right now I'm looking at some options as far as getting some supports in this, but I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to get that external support, but I'm definitely looking into it because right now that, you know, when I'm missing my generic Flomax, you know, that is a problem.
Right. Okay.
So
again, so there's again, one strategy might be making sure that we have the external supports necessary to be able to help us devote the time and the focus for these kinds of practices. Yes.
I kind of put it all together in a kind of a complex way. So a memorial for my youngest uncle and my youngest aunt at the same time. And I work 80 hours every other week, and then I work like 40 hours in the off weeks. But I find that mindfulness practice, the body scan and the breathing mindfulness and the pleasant experience mindfulness, doesn't interfere at all. Doesn't interfere at all with my busy schedule. It just makes it better. And one thing that I noticed at the, I don't want to answer too much, but I wanted to tell you about the memorial because I gave a talk there, and at the end I got 50 compliments, and everybody was saying my talk was the best talk. And a lot of people mentioned that I took time, they didn't say to breathe, but that's what it was. They said I was so much just kind of mindful of the whole audience. So that's what I mean by a complex of putting it all together.
So you found that by doing the practices through the week, that when you were having to speak, you were able to utilize those practices, right, during this sort of daily activity, right? It's not just when you're listening to the video, right? It's also when you're doing the things in your life. So, yeah, exactly. So thank you for sharing that. So, because again, the more that we work with these practices, the more we're likely to see some of those at times when we start using them just in our regular daily activities, which is really the point of all this, right? I mean, we're not training in these practices so that we're training to listen to a video. We're training in these practices so that they can benefit us when we're doing the regular things of our life, right? Not just when we're listening to the video. So yeah, thank you for sharing that example. Did anyone work with the picking one habit or routine activity to bring attention to? Like, I gave the example of brushing your teeth. How did that go?
So at home, I do the dishes because I like things to go in their certain spots, and so I like just don't do the dishes, I'll do when I get home, and so doing them and washing my hands, I find that I get a little bit distracted and like I start thinking about just my day, like how's my day going?
Yeah.
And then like if I'm cleaning something that's easy, but if I just kind of scrub at it, I'll actually stare at it thinking, will this help it clean faster? But I focus on what I'm doing because I'm like, I want this clean, I'm not putting it away half dirty, so I would wander a little bit, but when something really needed my attention, then I really focused on it.
Yeah. So again, seeing the difference in how even this sort of mundane activity like washing dishes, right? We're thinking and the mind's all over the place, and what happens when we just come back and just wash the dishes, right? Really bring attention to that. Excellent. Would anyone like to share another activity other than washing dishes?
Yeah, I've done pretty much zero of the body scan. I just don't have the time with the family situation. But I have found that the awareness, mindfulness can be a situational thing.
Absolutely.
Example is a couple of days ago, I had a piece of equipment I was working on, and there's some areas you just do not want to touch very hard because they're very fragile, but yet you're having to twist and turn and contort yourself to get at the pieces you're working with, and then you have to get them just right so you don't destroy the part.
Right.
So it's really delicate. So breathing comes into it, noticing that your arm is brushing against this really fine fiber optic that you don't want to damage visually. You'll do it if you do.
Right.
You get real mindful.
Okay.
It's a situational thing for me.
Right, yeah, exactly. So there's a task that really requires attention and focus, and being able to bring that kind of attention to really help us do the task and do it well.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. So one of the other activities for the homework this week was the Pleasant Events calendar. And you were asked to notice every day one pleasant experience and to record that in the Pleasant Events calendar and to bring that back with you. So if you brought the Pleasant Events calendar with you, if you'd like to pull that out so that you can refer to it while we're talking. Yes.
Okay, I didn't bring the calendar back with me, but I do recall one event.
Perfect. So hang on to that, because I'm going to be asking everyone to recall an event. Okay? So.
All right, I'll wait my turn then.
Yes. Hold on just a second. So if you have the calendar with you, you can refer to your calendar. If you don't have the calendar with you, I'd like for you to just think back, and if it's helpful to close the eyes, please feel free to do that. If that's not helpful, that's fine. But I'd like for you to think of one experience that maybe you wrote down this week on your calendar, and to just remember that pleasant experience. Just remember what happened when you had that really pleasant event. And in remembering that pleasant event, maybe just notice, as best as you're able, what did it feel like in the body to really have this pleasant experience? Just trying to recall that experience as best as possible. Maybe try to remember, how did it feel? What emotions were present? What were you thinking when you had this pleasant experience that you're trying to bring back into memory. You're remembering this pleasant experience that you had this week. What were you thinking? And with that pleasant experience fresh in your mind, in just a moment, if you had the eyes closed, feel free to open those. In just a moment, I'm gonna get up on the board, and one of the ways that you were asked to work with your pleasant events calendar was to think about how did it feel in the body? Did you notice what you were thinking? And did you happen to notice that when you had this really pleasant experience, were there any emotions? So, if you don't mind sharing first, in your pleasant experience, how did it feel in the body?
Well, my pleasant experience was having a cat on my lap, specifically one of the two cats that I have back at home.
Excellent, yes. And so, what did you notice about how what sensations were in the body during that pleasant experience?
There was a weight on my lap.
A weight? Okay, so you could feel the weight of the cat.
Yep.
Okay. Any other sensations in the body that you noticed?
Stroking a thick fur coat.
So, touch?
Yep.
Right. Anything else?
Occasionally I could feel the vibrations of the purr.
So you could feel the purring. The purr, so you felt again the touch, which was part of the vibration. Okay? Excellent.
Not any other sensations that I can think of.
Good. Did you notice if you had any particular thoughts? What were you thinking while this pleasant experience was happening?
Well, the cat that was laying on my lap is very particular about who she chooses to sit on. And the cat I have, with most people, she's like very aloof and evasive, but with me, she willingly goes on my lap. Every time she does, I often think about that.
Okay, so you're thinking that, oh, this is nice.
Yes.
Right? This is nice that she chose